Okay, sound bites on the sofa. Tony, we're back again.
We're going to talk about projects. Yeah, so projects are an area that I'm particularly passionate about, as you know. I've worked in quite a few of them. I think the first thing to say, Rob, is that they can be either sort of done in a really formal, structured way or in quite a relaxed way. And the things that drive the approach to how formal and structured you are probably around the impact that the project's going to have in the business, the financial cost of it, the timeline that it's likely to run over, and any sort of risk around reputation. So obviously, you know, where sort of it is more expensive, longer term, higher cost, and with reputation attached to it, you need to have a more sort of a robust framework. But you know, for a lot of aspirational SMEs, mid-sized companies, you know, it doesn't need to be sort of a fully framed project environment. So things that are really important around projects is, first of all, identifying what the impetus is for doing them. So that's around, and we've talked about this before briefly, but the business case, which underpins the whole reason for doing it. So that's a documented view on what the opportunity is, why we're doing it, how we're looking to resource it, what the risks are of doing it, what are the risks of not doing it,
What are the options?
The options, the high levels of options for exploring, and basically at the end a recommendation to proceed.
And that doesn't have to be complicated, does it? Or
No,
it doesn't have to be a detailed document.
It can literally be bullet points under each of those headings. And the main thing is that it's really quite clear, and it's a fluid document too. So it's not set in stone and parked and forgotten about. It should be regularly refreshed throughout the process, and you know, any sort of changing around any of those key sort of points needs to be updated. So that's the first thing. You need a business plan, a business case that forms part of the business plan. That's the first thing. The second thing is looking at the resourcing, the key roles around a project, and we'll touch on those really briefly. But they are obviously a project manager, which is the person responsible for collating the project plan, the key milestones, the deliverables, and you know, successfully managing the execution of the project. An executive sponsor, which is often the CEO or a senior member of the business whose part of the business is going to be impacted by the project. You've got subject matter experts who are individuals that have the knowledge in any particular sort of relevant area, and
they may be internal, but they're probably external.
Yeah, often a combination of both.
Yep.
And you know, it's really important that in that resourcing that you do look to sort of optimise, you know, the people usage and the wider skill set with consultants where required, if it's going to help the successful completion of the project.
Yep.
And the other sort of key critical role is project governance. So in between the project team, which is the project manager and the subject matter experts, and then the business, which is the sponsor, that you've got a governance function there that report on progress, that are there to manage any problems that come up in the project that threaten the success of it, and make the call on.
And things change over time as well, don't they? So
things do, and that's that goes back to the business case. I mean, as more information becomes available, the business case is updated, and that project governance function should be looking at saying, look, you know, yes, it's still relevant, we're going to proceed, or we're going to halt it pending something being resolved, or we're going to stop it altogether. So, and it's quite fine to do that, you know, because of course, you know, many businesses are not just managing a single project; they're managing multiple projects, and it's okay to reprioritise depending on what's going to create the best impact on the business. So we've touched on the resourcing, we've touched on the business case, the project plan itself is basically a sequence, a list of detailed steps with key milestones, which are like check-in points around the sort of completion, and clear lines of who's responsible for delivering, what what item within what time frame, and what sort of the dependencies are on the things happening in the critical steps before that. And it is up to the project manager to manage the subject matter experts to deliver within those timelines.
And I've certainly found myself with businesses that I've worked with, where they're going through this, that's often been the piece that's been lacking.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore you quite often see a project go on longer than it needs to.
Yeah,
it kind of drifts, if you like.
I think you're right.
Unnecessarily.
Some businesses think that you shouldn't commit to it on paper, and the project plan is just sort of up here. But it doesn't need to be a sort of a 50-page document. You know, the best project plans are at the required level of detail.
Needed for that particular.
Needed for that project, but they all need to be documented.
Yeah.
You know, and it might just be an Excel spreadsheet. You know,
Yeah.
1 through 20.
Yeah.
But it should always be documented. And then, of course, the project manager is reporting up to the governance function on progress, and that is really key as well.
Well, it's important to have that accountability, isn't it? That responsibility of a project manager who's accountable for getting things done.
Exactly.
I mean, they don't obviously do all the doing, but somebody's got to be accountable for either the success or the lack of success of that project.
Yeah, absolutely right. No, entirely agree. So we've touched on the resourcing, we've touched on the project plan, we've touched on the governance function. One of the other sort of key things around projects is you get to the end of it, and there needs to be sort of a formal handover to the business.
Yeah.
So and I guess sort of this sort of reiterates a key sort of point around projects is that they have a defined beginning and end. There's a business need to do them, and the sort of the accounting and the management of people should be done sort of alongside the core business or the business as usual. So you can put a picket fence around it and say, well, you know, this is the project, and this is what it's going to deliver. But you get to the end of the project and the business integrates the project into their business as usual. Then it becomes part of the core business, right? So all of the IP, you know, the knowledge that's acquired throughout the project process is handed over to the business, and it's formally closed out. Often there's a lessons learnt register that's also completed, and that forms part of the IP that's handed over upon the project being closed out.
Yeah, one of the other things that's really important about this, and it goes back to the business case, is understanding how much it's going to cost to make this change, to bring into this change.
Yeah.
And so, you know, part of the responsibility of the project manager is to manage those costs.
Correct.
Sometimes making tough decisions about which way you go, which options you take along the way, because of the monetary factor.
That's right. I mean, you always need to sort of factor in contingency.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the greatest risks around projects, and this is the reason why it's good to separate them from business as usual as well, is you get scope creepage. So you need to be very careful around ensuring that doesn't happen. And if it does need to happen, because you know the project starts and you know you're like, well, you know, we need to do this additional stuff, then that becomes properly integrated into the project plan, and the financial consequences of that scope creepage need to be factored in, and the resources required to do it. So you shouldn't be building in contingency that's unsubstantiated at the outset, but part of the process of going through and refreshing the sort of the project as more knowledge comes to hand is ensuring that you get the scope right and that you factor in the resourcing and the cost management as well.
Brilliant. Okay. I mean, that's good insight.